Invisible Hands. The morning light filtered through the tall windows of the Reed mansion, casting long shadows across the immaculate marble floors. Sophia Valdez moved quietly through the West Wing, her footsteps nearly silent as she pushed her cleaning cart. At 26, she had perfected the art of invisibility, a skill that served her well in the homes of Beverly Hills elite. This particular home, a modernist masterpiece perched in the hills overlooking Los Angeles, belonged to Nathaniel Reed, the notoriously private founder of Quantum Interface. Sophia had worked here for 8 months, and in that time, she had seen her employer exactly 4 times. The household staff referred to him as the Ghost. "Morning, Sophia," called Esther, the head housekeeper from the kitchen. "Mr. Reed's leaving for Singapore this afternoon. Extra attention to the library, please. He was working late again." Sophia nodded, tucking a strand of dark hair behind her ear. "I'll take care of it." The library was Sophia's favorite room in the sprawling estate, walls of books reaching to the ceiling, the scent of leather and paper hanging in the air. It was also where Mr. Reed kept part of his extensive collection of antiques, each piece more valuable than anything Sophia could ever hope to own. As she dusted the shelves, her eyes fell on an ornate wooden music box sitting slightly askew on a side table. It hadn't been there yesterday. Carefully, she lifted it to dust underneath and noticed a small brass hinge hanging loose from its side. Sophia glanced at the door. She shouldn't touch it. That was rule number 1. But the repair seemed so simple, and she had fixed dozens of similar pieces in her father's workshop back in Lima. "Just this once," she whispered, reaching into her pocket for the small tool kit she always carried, a habit from her childhood when she had apprenticed with her father, a master craftsman whose hands could breathe life into forgotten treasures. With practiced precision, Sophia realigned the hinge and secured it with tiny screws. She opened the lid, and a delicate melody filled the room, a Chopin nocturne her father had loved. For a moment, she was transported back to their small apartment, the workbench covered in tools and wood shavings, her father's patient instruction guiding her hands. The sound of a door closing somewhere in the house snapped her back to reality. Quickly, she placed the music box exactly as she had found it and resumed her cleaning. 3 days later, Sophia was polishing the banister when a voice behind her nearly caused her to drop her cloth. "Mrs. Winters tells me you're quite thorough," said Nathaniel Reed, referring to his house manager. Sophia turned, trying to appear composed. "I try to be, sir." In person, Reed was younger than he appeared in photographs, perhaps mid-30s, with sharp features and observant gray eyes. He wore casual clothes, expensive but understated, and looked at her with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. "The music box in the library," he said. "Did you repair it?" Her heart sank. "I'm sorry, Mr. Reed. I shouldn't have touched your property. It won't happen again." To her surprise, he smiled slightly. "How did you know what was wrong with it?" "That piece has been to 3 different restoration experts, and none could fix it without damaging the original mechanism. My father was a restoration artist," she replied cautiously. "I grew up in his workshop." "Interesting." He studied her for a moment longer. "There's a cabinet in my study with a similar problem. The drawer sticks. I'd like you to look at it." Before she could respond, he was walking away, clearly expecting her to follow. Sophia hesitated, then set down her cleaning supplies and did as instructed, wondering if this was leading to her dismissal or something entirely unexpected. What she couldn't possibly know was that this simple act of repair had revealed something. To Nathaniel Reed that had eluded him for years, someone who saw beauty in broken things and possessed the patience to restore them, someone whose hands could create what his vision could only imagine. And as she followed him into the study, Sophia had no idea that she had just taken the first step on a journey that would transform both their lives forever. The Gallery of Secrets, The mahogany cabinet in Nathaniel Reed's study wasn't just stuck. It was practically sealed shut, its intricate inlay warped from years of neglect. Sophia knelt before it, aware of Reed's intense gaze as she examined the piece. Victorian mid-1860s, she murmured, almost to herself. The humidity changes between seasons have twisted the runners. Her fingers traced the edge of the drawer. May I? Nathaniel nodded, crossing his arms as he leaned against his desk. From her pocket, Sophia produced a small bottle of beeswax and a polishing cloth. With practiced movements, she applied the wax to the wooden runners, working it into the grain. After a few minutes of careful manipulation, the drawer slid open with a satisfying glide. There, she said, wiping her hands on her apron. It should work smoothly now, but you'll need to wax it every few months. Instead of responding, Nathaniel walked to a keypad on the wall and pressed a sequence of numbers. A section of bookshelf slid aside, revealing a hidden door. Come with me, he said, his voice betraying a hint of something Sophia couldn't quite identify. Excitement, perhaps, or apprehension. She hesitated. Mr. Reed, I should get back to my regular duties. Consider? This your duty for today. He held the door open, waiting. Beyond the door lay a climate-controlled room that stretched the entire length of the house's east wing. Sophia's breath caught as she stepped inside. Illuminated by soft, museum-quality lighting were hundreds of antiques, furniture, musical instruments, clocks, and mechanical curiosities from every era and corner of the world. My private collection, Nathaniel explained, watching her reaction carefully. Most of these pieces have been deemed beyond restoration by so-called experts. Sophia moved slowly through the gallery, her trained eye catching subtle details. Missing veneer piece here, a broken gear mechanism there. Each item told a story of craftsmanship and history that made her heart ache with appreciation. This is incredible, she whispered, stopping before a tarnished silver music box with intricate, filigree work. These pieces deserve to be restored, to live again. That's exactly what I thought when I found your personnel file, Nathaniel said, standing beside her. Sofia Valdez, daughter of Eduardo Valdez, master restorer of the National Museum of Peru. You studied at the Instituto del Restauro in Lima before coming to the United States 5 years ago. She stiffened. You researched me? I research everyone who works in my home, he replied unapologetically. What I couldn't understand was why someone with your background and training would be cleaning houses. The question hung in the air between them, heavy with implications. Sophia turned away, focusing on a damaged grandfather clock to avoid his penetrating gaze. Life doesn't always follow our plans, Mr. Reed, she finally said. My father's illness, the medical bills. Some dreams had to be set aside. Nathaniel was silent for a long moment. I have a proposition for you, Ms. Valdez. Continue your housekeeping duties as a cover, but spend most of your time here, restoring these pieces. I'll provide whatever tools and materials you need, plus a substantial increase in your salary. Sophia's mind raced. The opportunity was incredible, a chance to practice her craft again, to honor her father's legacy. But the secrecy, the arrangement, it felt complicated, dangerous even. Why the secrecy? Why not just hire me as a restorer? Nathaniel's expression darkened slightly. The art world is political. I've made enemies. If word got out about this collection, about what I'm trying to preserve, he shook his head. It's simpler this way. For you, perhaps, Sophia countered, surprising herself with her boldness. A smile, genuine if fleeting, crossed his face. You're right, but I'm asking anyway. For 3 weeks after accepting his offer, Sophia lived a double life. Mornings were spent maintaining her cover as a housekeeper. Afternoons and evenings were devoted to the hidden gallery, where her hands remembered skills she thought she had abandoned forever. The first piece she fully restored was a delicate French musical automaton. A brass hummingbird that, once repaired, fluttered its wings in time to a tinkling melody. When she demonstrated it to Nathaniel, his usual stoic expression gave way to childlike wonder. "My grandfather had one similar to this," he admitted, watching the mechanical bird. "It was sold when he died. I've been searching for years to find another." These moments, these glimpses behind his carefully constructed facade, became more frequent as they worked together. Nathaniel wasn't just a collector, he was a preserver of history, of beauty that the world had discarded as worthless. One evening, as Sophia worked late on an intricate clock mechanism, she felt Nathaniel's presence behind her. He had been away on business for a week, and she hadn't expected him back until morning. "You've been sleeping here," he observed, noting the makeshift bed she'd created on the window seat. Sophia set down her tools. The piece needed constant attention during the adhesive curing. "I didn't want to risk leaving it." Instead of the reprimand she expected, Nathaniel sat beside her workbench. "Tell me about your father." The question caught her off guard. "He was my hero. Everything I know about restoration, about patience and respect for craftsmanship, I learned from him. And he wouldn't want you cleaning houses." Sophia looked down at her hands that were gradually losing their housemaid calluses and regaining the precise strength of a restorer. "No, but he would understand sacrifice for family." "Your siblings in Peru," Nathaniel nodded. "Your monthly wire transfers." "You really do research thoroughly," she said, unsure whether to be impressed or disturbed. "It's how I survived in business." He paused, studying her. "You know, there's a collector's auction next weekend in San Francisco. Several pieces similar to what we're working on here. Would you accompany me as my consultant?" The invitation hung between them, weighted with unspoken significance. This wasn't just about restoration anymore. It was a step into his world, into the light. "People would see us together," she said carefully. "They would ask questions." "Let them," Nathaniel replied, his gray eyes holding hers. "It's time I stopped hiding my collection, and perhaps it's time you stopped hiding your talent." As he left her to consider his invitation, Sophia looked around at the gallery, at the broken treasures slowly coming back to life under her care. She had begun to realize that it wasn't just the antiques being restored in this hidden room. With every piece she repaired, something inside her was healing too. Reflections in gold, the Westmore Gallery in San Francisco glittered with chandeliers and champagne flutes. Sophia adjusted the sleeves of her burgundy dress, borrowed from the collection of Nathaniel's sister, and tried to appear as though she belonged among the art world elite. "Stop fidgeting," Nathaniel murmured, his hand briefly touching the small of her back. "You're the most knowledgeable person in this room, and they'll realize it soon enough. I'm a housekeeper, attending a black tie auction with a tech billionaire," she whispered back. "This isn't exactly inconspicuous." His mouth curved slightly. "Former housekeeper. As of yesterday, you're officially the lead restoration specialist for the Reed Private Collection." Sophia nearly stumbled. "You didn't tell me." "I'm telling you now. Your new contract is in that envelope I gave you earlier." Before she could respond, they were approached by an elderly man with sharp eyes and an impeccable suit. "Nathaniel Reed," the man said, extending his hand. "Harrison Blackwell. We met at the Guggenheim benefit last year. I didn't realize you. We're a collector of mechanical antiquities." "I'm selective about who knows my interests," Nathaniel replied smoothly. "May I present Sophia Valdez, my restoration expert." "Ms. Valdez, Harrison owns the largest collection of 18th century music. Boxes on the West Coast." What followed was 3 hours of the most exhilarating professional experience of Sophia's life. Her knowledge, dormant for so long, flowed freely as collectors and curators engaged her in detailed discussions about restoration techniques. By the time the auction began, she had exchanged cards with the head conservator of the Metropolitan Museum and received an invitation to speak at a symposium on mechanical preservation. Lot 37, announced the auctioneer. An extremely rare 1783. Jacques Dros's automaton writer, believed to be one of only 3 in existence. Opening bid starts at $800,000. Sophia's breath caught as the automaton was displayed, a small mechanical figure designed to write actual words, with a quill pen. It was the kind of piece her father had dreamed of working on. "It's damaged," she whispered to Nathaniel. "The right arm mechanism is compromised, and the inkwell is missing components." "Can you restore it?" he asked quietly. "With time and the right materials, yes, but it would take months of—" She stopped as Nathaniel raised his paddle. The bidding was fierce, but 20 minutes later, the Jacques Drose was theirs for $1.7 million. "You didn't even hesitate," she said later as they rode back to their hotel in his private car. "Because you didn't," he replied simply. "I saw your face when they brought it out. Some things are worth any price." That night, unable to sleep, Sophia found Nathaniel on the hotel rooftop terrace, looking out over the city lights. For months, they had worked side by side in his hidden gallery, developing a rhythm and understanding that transcended their original arrangement. But here, away from the familiar confines of his mansion, something had shifted between them. "I keep waiting," she said, joining him at the railing, "for someone to expose me as a fraud, the housekeeper playing at being an expert. Yet no one did, because you're not playing." He turned to face her. "You were born for this work, Sophia. Everyone today saw what I've seen for months. And what is that? That your hands can coax beauty from ruin, that you understand the soul of these objects in a way most collectors never will." The intensity in his voice made her heart quicken. "Is that why you've invested so much in me? Because I'm useful for your collection?" "I think we both know it's more complicated than that." A cool breeze swept across the terrace, carrying the scent of the bay. Sophia shivered, and Nathaniel removed his jacket, placing it around her shoulders in a gesture so natural it seemed they had done this 100 times before. "When my father was dying," she said quietly, "he made me promise not to abandon my gift. I broke that promise when I came to America and took whatever jobs I could find. Every day I cleaned your house, I felt further from who I was meant to be. And now? Now I'm afraid," she admitted. "Afraid this is temporary. Afraid that I've become dependent on your world, your resources. What happens when you no longer need a restoration expert? When your collection is complete?" Nathaniel's hand found hers on the railing, his fingers warm against her skin. "The collection will never be complete. That's the point of collecting. The search is endless." "And us?" The question escaped before she could reconsider it. His gray eyes searched hers. "Also a work in progress, I think." The kiss that followed was tentative at first, then sure, like the careful initial touch of a restorer's hands, followed by the confidence of knowing exactly how the pieces fit together. Back in Los Angeles, their relationship evolved alongside Sophia's growing reputation. The hidden gallery was hidden no more. Nathaniel had it officially documented and began hosting small exclusive viewings for museum curators and serious collectors. Sophia's restoration work became sought after, with institutions offering commissions. That would have once seemed impossible. But as her star rose, whispers began. At a gallery opening in Malibu, Sophia overheard a conversation that turned her blood cold. "Reed's little project," a woman's voice said dismissively. "He's always had a thing for rescuing strays. Remember that homeless artist he sponsored last year? This one's prettier, at least." "The cleaning girl with the magic hands," a man laughed. "Wonder what else those hands are good at, to make Reed invest millions in her career." Sophia slipped away before they could see her, shame and anger burning in her chest. That night, she confronted Nathaniel in his study. "Is that what people think? That I'm your charity case? Your mistress with a convenient skill set?" "Does it matter what they think?" he countered, his voice maddeningly calm. It matters if it's true, she shot back. Have you been rescuing me this whole time? Am I just another project to you? His expression hardened. That's unfair, Sophia. You know damn well what we've built together is real. Do I? Because from where I'm standing, all of this, she gestured around them, feels like a beautiful illusion you've created. One you could dismantle at any moment. What do you want from me? He demanded, frustration finally breaking through his composure. I want to know that I would still matter to you if I walked away from all of this. If I went back to being just, Sophia Valdez, not the restoration expert you discovered and polished like one of your antiques. The silence that followed was deafening. Nathaniel's face was unreadable as he stood perfectly still, the distance between them suddenly vast despite the few feet separating them. You've never been just anything, he finally said, his voice low. And you know I'm not good at this, at expressing what I feel. But if you need space to figure out what you want, what's real for you, take it. Sophia felt tears threatening. This wasn't what she wanted, this calm acceptance of her possible departure. That's it? You won't fight for me to stay? I won't cage you, he corrected. There's a difference. She left that night taking nothing but her personal belongings and the original tools her father had given her. As her taxi pulled away from the mansion's gates, Sophia wondered if she had just made the biggest mistake of her life, or taken the first step toward truly finding herself again. Shattered canvas. The small apartment in Echo Park was a far cry from the Reed mansion, but it was hers, the first place Sophia had rented on her own since coming to America. 3 months had passed since she'd walked away from Nathaniel and the life they'd built together. 3 months of rebuilding her identity, piece by piece. The living room had been transformed into a workshop, with a large table positioned beneath the window for optimal natural light. Currently spread across it was a dismantled music box. She was restoring for a local antique dealer. Simple work compared to the treasures in Nathaniel's collection, but honest work that paid her bills. Her phone buzzed with a text from Daniela, a fellow restorer she'd met at a craft fair. Turn on Channel 8 now. They're talking about the Reed Collection exhibition. Sophia's heart jumped as she fumbled for the remote. The TV flickered to life, showing footage of a grand gallery space, filled with familiar pieces, the automata, music boxes, and mechanical wonders she had restored over the past year. The most significant private collection of its kind, the reporter was saying, now on public display for the first time at the Harrison Museum of Art. Curator Jessica Winters calls it a testament to the power of restoration and preservation. The camera panned to show Nathaniel in a dark suit, looking uncomfortable as he was interviewed. He'd lost weight, Sophia noticed, and the shadows under his eyes spoke of sleepless nights. Mr. Reed, rumors suggest many of these pieces were restored by Sophia Valdez, who seemingly vanished from the art world 3 months ago. Can you comment on her contribution? The camera zoomed in on Nathaniel's face, and Sophia found herself holding her breath. Every piece in this exhibition bears the signature of Sophia Valdez's expertise, he said without hesitation. Without her vision and skill, this collection would be nothing but beautiful junk. The exhibition is as much hers as it is mine, which is why her name appears alongside mine on every display card and in the exhibition catalog. The reporter pressed further. And her current whereabouts? Ms. Valdez is pursuing her own path, as she should be. If you're hoping for gossip about our personal relationship, you'll be disappointed. The work speaks for itself. Sophia turned off the television, emotions warring within her. She hadn't expected him to credit her so openly, to share the spotlight he typically avoided. Her gaze fell on the exhibition invitation that had arrived a week ago, still unopened on her countertop. The next morning, disguised in oversized sunglasses and a hat, Sophia slipped into the Harrison Museum. She stayed at the back of the crowd, watching as visitors marveled at the collection, at her work. Each piece had an extensive description detailing not only its history, but the restoration techniques employed to save it. Her name was everywhere, her expertise celebrated. Near the Jacques Droz automaton, the centerpiece of the exhibition, she noticed a small, separate display case containing a familiar object, the music box she had first repaired in Nathaniel's library. The description card read, "The Beginning." This simple music box represents the first collaboration between collector Nathaniel Reed and restoration artist Sophia Valdez. Its repair marked the start of a partnership that would go on to save over 200 historical artifacts from obscurity and decay. He insisted on including it. Sophia turned to find Jessica Winters, the museum's chief curator, standing beside her. He said people needed to understand how something small can change. "Everything," Jessica continued, studying Sophia's reaction. "He knows you're here, by the way. Security recognized you immediately." "I'm not hiding," Sophia said, removing her sunglasses. "I just didn't want to complicate his big day." Jessica laughed softly. "His big day? Honey, he's been a nervous wreck. This whole exhibition is his love letter to you." "That's ridiculous. Nathaniel Reed doesn't do grand romantic gestures." "No? Then why is the exhibition titled Invisible Hands? The phrase, the exact words she had used to describe herself when they first met, sent a jolt through Sophia's body. Before she could respond, Jessica was gesturing toward a doorway behind them. "He's in the restoration lab we set up for the interactive demonstrations. You should go see what he's working on." Curiosity propelled Sophia forward. The museum's restoration lab was a glass-enclosed space where visitors could watch conservators at work. Inside, bent over a workbench with intense concentration, was Nathaniel. His hands moved awkwardly as he attempted to reattach tiny gears to a pocket watch movement. As she watched, he fumbled a spring, his frustration evident as it bounced across. "The worktop. You're using the wrong tweezers," Sophia said, stepping into the lab. "For something that delicate? You need the curved ones." Nathaniel froze, then slowly looked up. For a long moment, they simply stared at each other, the months of separation hanging between them. "I know," he finally said. "I've been waiting for someone to tell me that for about an hour." Despite everything, Sophia found herself smiling. "What are you doing, Nathaniel?" "Failing miserably at restoration." He set down his tools, gaining a whole new appreciation for how difficult your work is. She moved closer, examining the pocket watch. "This is an 1850s Patek Philippe. It's worth—" "I don't care what it's worth," he interrupted. "I care that I understand what you do, what you are. And what am I?" "The opposite of me," he said simply. "I collect broken, beautiful things because I don't know how to fix them. You fix them because you see beyond the brokenness to what they could be again." Sophia's throat tightened. "That sounds dangerously like a metaphor." "Maybe it is." He gestured to the exhibition beyond the glass walls. "I didn't do all this to get you back, Sophia. I did it because your work deserves recognition, because what we created together matters, regardless of everything else." She picked up the curved tweezers he should have been using, feeling their familiar weight. "I've missed this," she admitted. "The collection. The work." "Just the work?" His voice was carefully neutral. Sophia met his gaze directly. "No, not just the work." Outside the glass walls, museum visitors had gathered, whispering as they recognized the mysterious Sophia Valdez working alongside Nathaniel Reed. Their private moment had become part of the exhibition, another chapter in the story. "I can't go back to being what I was before," she said quietly. "Your employee, your project. I don't want you to." His hand moved toward hers on the workbench but stopped short of touching it. "I want a partner, someone who challenges me, who sees the world differently than I do, who reminds me why beauty matters. And if that partner sometimes needs to walk away to remember who she is, then I'll be here when she returns, he said simply, with an extremely expensive pocket watch that needs fixing. Sophia laughed, the sound breaking the tension between them. She picked up the tiny spring he had dropped and, with the precision that had become her signature, placed it exactly where it belonged. "We have an audience," she noted, nodding toward the gathered crowd. Nathaniel's eyes never left her face. "Let them watch. Some restoration work should be witnessed." As their fingers finally touched across the workbench, Sophia felt something shift into place, like the final gear in a complex mechanism, allowing everything to function as it was meant to. They still had much to repair between them, but for the first time, she believed they had all the right tools for the job. Masterpiece unveiled 1 year later, a converted warehouse in the Arts District hummed with activity. Sunlight streamed through skylights, illuminating workbenches where a dozen young apprentices carefully cleaned, repaired, and documented antique, mechanical artifacts. At the center of it all was Sophia, moving from station to station, offering guidance and encouragement. "Gentle pressure, Javier," she advised a young man struggling with a clock mechanism. "Listen to what the piece is telling. If it resists, don't force it." The Valdez Restoration Institute was barely 6 months old, but already it had gained recognition for its innovative approach, combining traditional techniques with modern technology and providing scholarships to talented students from disadvantaged backgrounds. Sophia checked her watch and clapped her hands. "Everyone wrap up for today. Remember, tomorrow we have the field trip to the conservation department at the Getty." As the apprentices packed their tools, Sophia retreated to her office, a glass-walled space that allowed her to observe the workshop while having privacy for her own projects. Currently, her workbench held what appeared to be a simple wooden box, unremarkable except to the trained eye that could recognize its 16th-century Spanish craftsmanship. A knock at the door pulled her attention away. Jessica Winters from the Harrison Museum entered, followed by an elegant older woman Sophia didn't recognize. "Sorry to interrupt," Jessica said. "Sophia, I'd like you to meet Constance Blackwood. She's the chairwoman of the International Preservation Society and is in town for the symposium next week." Sophia wiped her hands and extended one to the older woman. "Mrs. Blackwood, it's an honor. Your work on the Venice restoration projects is legendary." "As is your meteoric rise in our field," Constance replied, her British accent crisp. "I've been following your career with interest, Ms. Valdez. Not many can go from household staff to internationally recognized expert in under 2 years." The comment held a subtle barb that Sophia didn't miss. "I had an unconventional path, certainly, but my training began long before I ever set foot in Nathaniel Reed's home." "Yes. Your father was quite respected in Peru, I understand." Constance moved around the office, examining Sophia's current projects with a critical eye. "Tell me, does Mr. Reed still influence your professional decisions?" The implication was clear, and Sophia felt a familiar flash of defensiveness. Before she could respond, another voice joined the conversation. "Actually, Mrs. Blackwood, it's usually the other way around." Nathaniel stood in the doorway, looking more relaxed than he ever had in the days when Sophia had worked in his home. The past year had changed him, softened his edges without diminishing his intensity. "Nathaniel," Constance nodded coolly, "I was just discussing your partnership with Ms. Valdez." "Our partnership is quite simple," he replied, moving to stand beside Sophia. "She restores priceless artifacts. I provide the funding for this institute and follow her lead on acquisition decisions. The Reed collection remains under joint curation, with all major decisions requiring both our approvals." Sophia fought to keep her expression neutral, though she was touched by his defense. Their relationship, both professional and personal, had evolved into something neither of them could have predicted that first day in his library. I see. Constance's expression remained skeptical. And the rumored Bancroft acquisition? The mechanical planetarium? Nathaniel looked to Sophia, deferring to her expertise. It was a small gesture, but one that spoke volumes. We've authenticated it, Sophia confirmed. But restoration will be challenging. The mercury mechanisms are degraded and will require specialized handling. That's actually why we're developing our toxic materials protocol with the chemistry department at UCLA. The conversation continued, with Sophia fielding increasingly technical questions. By the time Constance and Jessica departed, the older woman's initial skepticism had transformed into grudging respect. She came here to determine if I was qualified to keynote the symposium, Sophia said once they were alone. To see if I was more than just Nathaniel Reed's project. And I'd say you passed with flying colors. Nathaniel loosened his tie. Though I'm pretty sure she still thinks we have an arrangement. Sophia laughed. We do have an arrangement, just not the one she's imagining. They had found their balance over the past year, Sophia establishing her independence with the Institute, Nathaniel learning to be a partner rather than a patron. Their personal relationship had deepened alongside their professional one, each strengthening the other. How's the Bancroft restoration plan coming? He asked, examining her notes spread across the desk. I'm still working through the mercury issue. It's dangerous, but historically accurate restoration would require it. She rubbed her temples. I'm torn between authenticity and safety. What would your father advise? It was the question he always asked when she faced a difficult decision. His way of acknowledging the foundation upon which her expertise was built. He would say that preservation of life always comes before preservation of objects, she answered, after a moment's reflection. We'll find another way. Maybe a non-toxic alloy with similar properties. Nathaniel nodded, trust evident in his expression. Whatever you decide, the Institute will support it. Later that evening, after the apprentices had gone and the warehouse had fallen quiet, they walked together through the exhibition space being prepared for the upcoming symposium. Display cases held examples of their most successful restorations, alongside photographs documenting the process from damage to renewal. Remember when you asked if I would still matter to you if I walked away from all this? Sophia said, stopping before a case containing the first music box she had repaired. If I was more than just your project? I remember. His hand found hers, their fingers intertwining with familiar ease. I needed to prove to myself that I could stand on my own, she continued, that my talent was real, not just a reflection of your resources. And now? Sophia turned to face him fully. Now I understand that what we've built, together and separately, is stronger than either of us could have created alone. You taught me to think beyond survival, to dream again. I taught you to see beauty in imperfection, he finished, to value the process of restoration as much as the end result. In the quiet gallery, surrounded by objects that had once been discarded as beyond saving, Nathaniel pulled a small box from his pocket. Not velvet, as might be expected, but carved wood with brass hinges. I made this, he said, a hint of nervousness in his voice. My first complete restoration project. Inside, nestled on silk, was a ring, not new and perfect, but clearly antique, with a history visible in its patina. It belonged to my grandmother, he explained. She was an immigrant, too, came to America with nothing but her skill as a seamstress and her determination to build a better life. Sophia's breath caught as she understood what he was offering. Not just a ring or a proposal, but an acknowledgement of their shared journey. The restoration isn't perfect, he admitted. There are scratches I couldn't remove, a slight irregularity in the setting. But it's perfect because of those things, she interrupted, her vision blurring with tears. Because they tell its story. As he slipped the ring onto her finger, Sophia thought of her father's workshop in Lima, of the lessons he had taught her about patience and vision and faith in what others couldn't yet see. She thought of the lonely mansion where she had once been invisible, and this warehouse full of light and purpose that was now her domain. Most of all, she thought of how restoration wasn't just about returning something to what it had been before. It was about making it strong enough to face the future, scars and all. "Yes," she said simply, answering his unspoken question. Around them, the mechanical treasures they had saved together seemed to bear witness, each one a testament to the fact that broken things, when handled with care and expertise, could become more valuable, more beautiful, more meaningful than they had ever been before, just like the two people standing among them, whose unlikely journey from employer and housekeeper to partners and equals had become its own kind of masterpiece. One crafted slowly, patiently, one careful repair at a time.